Hello, hello. Welcome back to another edition of StarSound Speaks. This is your host, Irlianna Samsara of StarSound Astrology. We're going to talk about Jupiter's entrance into Taurus on Tuesday, May 16th. What does this mean? What does it look like rolling out of Aries into Taurus? We're also going to talk about previous cycles when Jupiter was in Taurus. Then I'm going to talk about the exact chemistry, the very special chemistry of what this particular ingress is holding for us and how we can use that to empower us. And then finally, the key transits. I'm just going to talk about three big ones between now and next year. And then what we can do for ourselves. We'll finish with the shadow side of Jupiter. And so what to look out for as we take this journey together. For those of you who don't know me or are new to the channel, welcome, welcome. I do Hellenistic astrology blended with modern archetypes. What we're looking at here, Jupiter. What is Jupiter? The greater benefic. Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system. It's huge compared to planet Earth. That great Gustav Holst suite, Jupiter was the bringer of jollity. So the word jovial, Jove, the Roman name for Jupiter. So jovial, this is beneficence, luck, opportunity, expansion, abundance, prosperity. This is a planet that brings all of these things, divine blessing. That the wise King Solomon, who was Jupiter in Aries, was bringing us people really boldly speaking up for their truth, spirituality, wisdom, legislation, the judicial system. As it moves into Taurus, we're taking these fresh initiatives that have begun with Jupiter in Aries, and we're going to be grounding them and stabilizing them. Taurus is a fixed earth sign. So we're grounding and stabilizing this knowledge, this wisdom. This one's really exciting because we've got Uranus in the mix, Uranus in the sign of Taurus for the last 5 years. So there's a lot of excitement. This really speaks to the dawn of a new day, the abundance that comes from being practical and resilient and resourceful and growing steadily. That's the Taurus way. We're kind of slow getting going, but it's trotting along like the bull, firmly rooted and moving in a way that is very practical and resourceful, very grounded, very centered. This speaks also to the abundance that comes from that mindset. That's where we will draw our abundance from, our thinking would come from these practical qualities. And the liberation with Uranus in the mix, the liberation that comes from that, the rewards and liberation that comes from being centered and grounded and practical. Taurus is very much about our talents, our skills, the things that are important to us, our personal possessions, self-esteem, anchoring and building our self-esteem. Speaking it, Taurus rules the voice box. Jupiter in Aries is identifying who am I? Now that we found it, we're going to speaking it into existence and stabilizing those concepts. That's the Taurus way. Since Taurus rules the voice, speaking up perhaps for a vision of what's possible with hope and confidence and optimism. I just got an email from Erin Reese, who's going to come back on the podcast, and she is doing an audiobook of her Bindi Girl book. It's a great episode we did, and she's going to be doing an audio version of her book, her memoirs of India. And she sends this huge picture. She's like, hey, I decided to do the audiobook. So she set up the studio in her home, and she has this microphone the size of Cincinnati. It's just this huge. I've never seen such a big microphone. It's like the size of a football. But I thought, oh my goodness, see, she's already feeling that Jupiter and Taurus. And of course, Jupiter is go big, go bold, or go home, right? So if this is about podcasting on steroids. So if you've felt to start a podcast or do any kind of audio recording, like this is the year. With Jupiter in the mix, with Uranus next year coming to the conjunction. It's just going to be a wild adventure. What a great visual with this big microphone being heard and speaking this wisdom, right? Jupiter is all about higher wisdom. She's going to talk about India. So that's our Jupiter in Taurus meme, so to speak. Okay, previous cycles. Jupiter in Taurus, Christine Lagarde became the head of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Very Jupiter in Taurus. Here's a woman, right? Taurus is a yin, earth, feminine sign. And here's this woman in a position of high power and prestige, Jupiter. Also, we had Farm Aid, John Cougar Mellencamp, Willie Nelson, and all these top artists that came together to help the farmers. Benevolent Jupiter coming together. Further in history, Jupiter was in Taurus in 1988. And that's when that movie Working Girl came out with Melanie Griffith, working class girl who just relies on her wits, the secretary for this very Jupiterian Sigourney Weaver, the boss in this big high-end Wall Street firm, and how she takes on these power-tripping people. And perfect example, the resilient heroine. This is an archetype that is calling us to be that resilient, heroine that lives in us, that is really being called forth for prosperity and abundance. It's about being resilient, being resourceful, being tenacious, and slow and steady building. Taurus, the master builder. Building our financial freedom. There's a woman named Tori Dunlap, and she has this New York Times bestseller. And again, it came out, and here it is. It's called Financial Feminists, and it's about getting over, as she said, the BS of the male patriarchy and just becoming powerful with your own finances, overcoming shame and judgment and self-judgment around financial situations and becoming financially free. She called it Financial Feminist. This absolutely, this kind of idea, this speaks to the times. This is the zeitgeist, instant bestseller. Jupiter in Taurus is going to build even further. Victory gardens. That's what happened in the 1940s. Jupiter and Taurus, right? Let's get fertile. Let's get in touch with the earth, the abundance and the expansion too on an esoteric level. Jupiter representing the expansion of consciousness and a spiritual path of being in nature and connecting with the earth and feeling the sensuality. The Taurus is about what we can touch and smell and taste and feel. And so there's the access to prosperity and the access to higher consciousness is through these means. In the 1940s, when Jupiter was in Taurus, in Aries, people started to grow victory gardens to help in World War II. Jupiter also represents patriotism. So you can see how this idea about, oh, I'm going to, grow this garden because it's going to help keep the food supply for the troops that were fighting in World War II overseas. So there it is. Rosie the Riveter, that was another very popular meme from the 1940s. The women that claimed their power and went to work in the factories making all the parts and things for the war effort. Rosie the Riveter is a woman who used, the famous, she's got her arm up and the bicep, that strength, that feminine strength and resilience. Now I'm going to talk about what this particular chart looks like. Here is the ingress for Washington, D.C. It's going to be entering the 9th house, which is the house of legislation. We could very much be seeing environmental legislation, things that are honoring the earth. But before I get into that or go further with that, I just want to say that in terms of this ingress, if you can see, here's a lot of Taurus in the sky at the ingress here. So you've got a stellium in Taurus plus the north node. So Jupiter will be meeting up pretty quick with that north node. So there's this huge emphasis on all things Taurian. And so this really speaks to Tess, the heroine of Working Girls, standing up for ourselves and our self-worth as women, honoring the earth, honoring Mother Earth. This would be legislation, higher wisdom. Mars in Cancer, it's fighting for our comfort, fighting for our security and being bold and courageous. With Venus co-present with Mars, there is that sense of softening and smoothing things over. But I think the beneficence of Jupiter is going to help with things like water wars and all the things that have been happening with water and water supplies and water rights. This could definitely be indicative. And the earth in general, but certainly with water, with that sextile with Venus and Cancer, its domicile ruler. There's a lot of Venusian energy here. Venus, Jupiter, Venus is in Cancer. It's evening star. It's in her own bounds. And so this is definitely about nurturing and the prosperity which comes from emotional bonds and nurturing and caring about one another, taking care of each other, taking care of ourselves, taking care of the goddess that lives inside all of us, and the nurturer, the archetype of the mother and the nurturer, home, family, children, right? It's all Cancerian, very Venusian, right? And the connections and the emotional intimacy that comes and the prosperity that comes from that. So it's a new paradigm that's emerging. What I find is interesting too is the moon is balsamic for the entrance of Jupiter. The moon is the exaltation ruler of, moon is exalted in Taurus. So the moon gives support to Jupiter. The thing is that the moon is balsamic. It is in its final stages of the new moon cycle. So it'll go, the following week, it will be a new moon. So that last stage is called balsamic. Think of balsamic. What is balsamic? Balsamic vinegar. I know that's what you're thinking. Oh, yeah, aged vinegar. So it's like a cycle of a way of being that has gone through in its entire life cycle. So this is a fixed earth yin intuitive drawing in for strength. It's like it's saying the old ways of self-worth are now ready to retire. Our real self-worth is what we can resource from within us, just like the leaves on the tree fall away and in wintertime and it looks, quote, dead on the outside, and it's not. It's, of course, it's in a dormant phase and it's ready for rebirth at a later time. So the moon tells a really interesting story here about that. The access to this transformation is that intuitive drawing in for strength. And I think the greatest wealth is to reach deep within ourselves for strength, for resource. We are our own resource. We are our best financier, so to speak. It's not this external yang thing of self-worth. It's like what we choose and what we stand for, finding our truth with that, what is really important to us. I think of that saying, the best things in life are not things, especially when Jupiter lines up with Uranus a year from now. Definitely going to hear that loudly. I think, too, the connection that we make with nature and Mother Earth, mineral springs and mud baths, get a bathtub with some Epsom salts, that Taurian pampering and sensuality that comes from taking care of ourselves. The image of the hermit is also an interesting idea for the balsamic moon phase. There's a closure and a completion that is going on here. And I think, too, in the collective with the monetary system and in the collective of the Wall Street banking and monetary systems, that we're going through this closure of the old ways, and there's a completion here. Interesting, because that book, the Financial Feminist book, it's very in tune astrologically with what is being asked of us here. The new standard of self-worth coming on. It's this winding down and then having a dawn of a new day. You could certainly see an expansion of laws with even not just in the environment and the water, as I said before, but also legislation regarding the monetary system. The key transits. Okay, so watch, like I always say, watch May 16th to May 20th. Watch what happens, because that's when Jupiter is going to be at 0 degrees, and that's going to give you a preview of coming attractions. As soon as it goes into 0 degrees, whammo, it's hitting that retrograde Pluto at 0 Aquarius. It's a square. Pluto, the toll collector. It goes into this sign, but it's got to deal with Pluto and Pluto overshadowing it. So it's like, hey, look, we are radically reinventing our society to be more humanitarian. Don't forget it. You can't not let Pluto bang down on you. Lord of the underworld, where there's a crisis here and we're going to address it. And so the crisis, the addressing of one, who am I in relative to the community? It's in a square with Jupiter, Mars, and Pluto are all going to be in that square, 0 degrees of a fixed sign, and it's a fixed square, big old T-square. Oh, little pressure cookery, right? Every time you got Mars and Pluto in opposition, so that's Pluto is the pressure cooker, and then there's Mars, so the will, personal will versus what is going to serve society at large, what will create and build a sustainable future is very much at play here. And of course, it's overcoming. So it's as Jupiter enters, it's dealing with this. It's kind of like this tug of war. The opposition's the nature of Saturn. What we must take responsibility for, what needs to be integrated. So all of the above that I've been talking about with our self-worth and all, but we're also factoring in how does this play out with the larger society, Pluto and Aquarius, and certainly where are we not free? Tori's book, we got to overcome this colonialist patriarchy that has held all of us back. Unless you're a billionaire, unless you're Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, this is a dawning of a new era, leaning into ourselves, waiting for somebody to save us. Saturn is like all these ideas around a savior, government or CEO daddy is going to save all of us. It's like, no, we have to rely on ourselves and our own wits and our own resilience, and have faith in your own resilience. You are more resilient than you realize. And sometimes when difficult things happen, that's the spur that calls us into the hero's journey or the heroine's journey. This is a call to action. So we have this big old T-square that's going to last for a few days, because Mars, of course, will go pretty quickly out of that. The beautiful orchestral symphony that is Jupiter and Taurus is met with this pretty intense wake-up call, real harsh. It's got to deal with some pretty intense things that have crisis attached to them, but of course the opportunity for reprogramming. Jupiter's going to go retrograde at 15 degrees of Taurus. So halfway through, it'll stop, retrograde back to 5 degrees. That will happen from right around Labor Day weekend, so 4th of September to December 30th. It will be retrograde. In October, Jupiter and Venus, the two benefics, are going to be in a trine. Well, you always look for Jupiter and Venus in trines, right? That's always a lucky time. Should be an interesting time in October. Jupiter, though, will be retrograde. Venus will be in Virgo. Again, we'll have a Jupiter trine with Venus, this time in January of 2024. Venus will be in Capricorn. So different conversation. Don't want to get into all those details, but we will certainly down the road. And then, of course, the big shebang of this whole transit, the most dynamic, exciting, stimulating transit will be when Jupiter comes into its exact conjunction with Uranus, which will be about a year from now, April 20th. For the solar eclipse, is a total solar eclipse in 2024. We haven't had one of them since the Great American Eclipse in 2017. That'll be visible in the United States. Well, Jupiter's going to conjunct Uranus. It'll be within 2 degrees for that solar eclipse. So that'll be very prominent, meeting up with dynamic, innovative, groundbreaking, paradigm-shifting Uranus. 2 weeks later, exact conjunction, end of April. And this is melding innovation with resourcefulness and practicality, and the thinking and the genius opportunities and thinking that come our way, and blessings when we lean into our future selves and we see the earth as a living organism, seeing it as Mother Gaia, seeing it in this more enlightened viewpoint. Just one thing that comes to mind, how that will bless us. It'll be doing great things for Mother Earth, positive thinking, hope, and confidence. The best things in life are not things. Can't say it enough. What can we do with this? Well, for ourselves, well, I don't know about you, but I'm going to get a big old order of chocolate and just sniff my face. No, just kidding. No, not. I'm not kidding. I love chocolate. Jupiter and Taurus. Oh my God, Taurus ruled by Venus. Venus is about sweet, fair trade. That'll be another great thing for legislation and laws and the wisdom that comes from honoring the earth and honoring the people who humbly work the earth, like the fair trade farmers and the farmer co-ops and all those things. This is going to be really a big conversation this coming year. So supporting those wonderful food purveyors that have these organic fair trade deals. I'm thinking of this chocolate. I think it's called Taza or Tazo. It's like a little hockey puck, really good. Stone ground. How Jupiter and Taurus is that? Stone ground, this abundance of delicious chocolate. And it's simple ingredients, chocolate and a little salt and cacao butter. It's the most delicious thing. Hard to fast when Jupiter's in Taurus. However, the conjunction and the presence with Uranus is like saying, okay, you need to binge on healthy food that's going to honor the earth. None of this cow farming, factory farming, like no. I would think too, singing, your voice, singing, spiritual retreats, mineral springs and mud baths. I think that would be an awesome thing to do with Jupiter and Taurus. Beautiful, earthy drumbeat music, polyphonic singing. Jupiter's about expansion of the voice. So polyphonic singing, like the Bulgarian women's choir, the tuba, the throat singers, Mongolian throat singing. I know you woke up this morning thinking, gosh, I don't know why I'm thinking about Mongolian throat singing. Oh, because I was going to say something. But officer, I was just listening to some Bulgarian folk singers. Tuvan throat singers from Mongolia. Really amazing. This kind of overtoning. I tried doing it once. Really strains the voice. Listen to it. Much easier. Laboratorium Pishni, which is I believe they're from the Ukraine, an amazing women's folk group, beautiful folk songs. I have no idea what they're saying, but they're most incredible 5 or 6 women. I'll put a playlist together and get that out to you. There's another group called Anonymous 4, these women singing these Gregorian chants and polyphonic singing. I used to play it when I did sound healing and energy medicine, and it just takes you, especially with Saturn and Pisces, you want to listen to music that's just going to dissolve your reality base and take you into these deep, deep spaces. Music to feel our bodies, that gets us back in touch with the present moment, being here in our body. The last thing, shadow side of Jupiter, overextending, overpromising, overdoing it, getting a little too hedonistic, eating 1 too many Taza chocolate bars, feeling righteousness or entitlement. Well, I'm entitled to this land and this water. When I lived in Sedona, there were people accused of side drilling, these real estate developers. Saturn in the sign of Pisces, deception around water, they would drill down and then to the side, and they would rob the neighboring land's water so they could build. Yeah, it's like really, really crummy. So I would just beware of things like that. When it comes to the things we value, Taurus energy can also be very stubborn. It gets going and it doesn't want to stop. And that's not always a good thing, right? It's slow and steady, but sometimes it's about switching gears and being flexible might be challenging. So yes, be tenacious, but don't get so digging your heels in. Well, that's all I have for you. I hope you've enjoyed this little chat around Jupiter and Taurus. I'm going to do another episode, which is just in the signs, where is this going to be in your chart? Where's Taurus in your chart, and what blessings you can expect from Jupiter going through that house in your chart. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe if you enjoyed this content. We're so grateful for all those comments and all of you wonderful, wonderful lovelies. And we will see you soon. Okay, take care now. This is Irlianna Samsara of StarSound Astrology and StarSound Speaks. Have a great one.